I had an announcement for you guys too. On December 17th at the Deer Park is our alumni and alumni family event. So you guys should come. And there's going to be a Facebook event posted soon. Look for that on the alumni page. And everybody, so there's a flyer that has more information about everyone. You made it really on time. Report back to me on a good take one.
Sounds good. I'll grab one a little bit.
At 8, so I can't think about it.
Cool.
So Ethan rushed over. Last year he was going to be part of our alumni panel, and he was running for office, which was a depressing day for the rest of us, but not for you. And so for the presidential level, which you were elected.
Yep.
And then tonight he was maybe the missing exam, and he took his exam, hope he took retirement.
Well, we'll see.
And then he rushed over. So he could be part of our panel. So here's what we'll do is have you their names are in front and introduce, and you'll have your, there's a flyer, you can match up the people with their experience. So we'll just introduce them, jump into some questions, and we'll have some like 3 questions that they'll answer or chime in, you guys, and then we'll have time for questions and answer. And after that, there's refreshments, and you guys can mingle and ask some more questions. And we also have Debbie Boyer over here, who is the spotlight, Miranda's mom, and so she could also answer more mom questions. And Rebecca Dow is here in the back. She has to leave, but next year she's going to be our featured alumni. So, well, I'll just start, and let me just say your name. What you're doing now.
Okay. Hi everyone, so my name is Ethan White. I'm a senior organizational and community leadership major at the University of Delaware. I'm minoring in Jewish studies, I guess. Let's see, for high school I went to Conrad Schools of Science in Newport, Delaware. Some of the stuff I'm involved in now revolves around a lot of Jewish life on campus. I'm involved in, as Kate said, in the University of Delaware Hillel as their president. I'm involved in Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity, which is another Jewish-related thing that I do, which is kind of the majority, and I just accepted my first job at post-graduation out in Indianapolis. I did promise you that in 8th grade, I do remember that.
And you also said when you were here from what grade to what grade?
Yeah, so I was here from 1st grade all the way through 8th grade.
What's your work?
I'm working in the Jewish Leadership and Programming Department of Alpha Epsilon Pi's International Fraternity Headquarters.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Johanna Chages. I'm also a senior at UD. I'm a neuroscience major. What else do I do? I'm president of the Neuroscience Honor Society at UD. I'm in a community service sorority, Gamma Sigma Sigma, and I'm also a community engagement ambassador at the university, which is a new student position where we try and get other students on campus more involved in service and with the New York community in general. And I'm a recently certified Zumba instructor, so that's keeping up with the dancing. I used to dance. And I went here from 5th grade to 8th grade and graduated in 2010.
These guys are tough to follow.
Hey, but you invented box sports.
That's true. I mean, no one can beat that legacy. Well, let's see. I'm a Spanish and psychology major at the University of Delaware. Oh, I'm Miranda. There's a plaque right here, guys. I'm Miranda. I forgot about that part. But I'm a Spanish and psychology major at the University of Delaware. It's like the main thing I'm doing right now. I went to Stanford for high school, and I went here at NCCL from 6th to 8th grade.
So one of the things I think you offer that's really interesting that people worry about, like, what if we pick the wrong high school? Like, it's life or death if we pick the right high school. And I think, Miranda started at Stanford, transferred to New York High, and then transferred back to Stanford. So, and did phenomenally well and had really great learning experiences everywhere. So it's not the end of the world if you change your mind and then change back again.
And I went to CAB. I didn't say that.
I am Brendan Duff. I am currently attending Abbey Road High School as a junior. I'm the secretary for both the Model United Nations Club and the Italian Club, and an active member in the robotics team. And I attended school here from 1st to 8th grade.
My name is Brandon Peak. I'm a junior at Wilmington Friends School. I have a large interest in photography and I'm hoping to pursue that as a career. And I'm in many clubs at my school, including GSA, which is like the LGBTQIA club, Feminism Club, the Asian Culture Club, which I help run, which is really fun.
You went to China, right?
Yeah, I went to China this past spring.
Sorry. I'm Jasmine Vidal. I graduated in 2016. I went here from 5th to 8th grade. I currently am a sophomore at Padua Academy. I don't really think I can say I've done as much as these guys. I'm interested in like civil engineering. I think that's kind of where I want to end up going, and I think I want to go to the University of Delaware. So.
My name is Sarah Dumblin. I'm currently a technical writer at Aberdeen Breeding Ground. I graduated from the UD with a professional writing major, which is English with professional writing, and a minor in anthropology. I went to St. Mark's High School, and I went to NCCL from 3rd to 7th grade. Random fun fact, I somehow managed to join chapter of Starfleet that I now help run. It's the local chapter of the USS Alistair. We're community service based, so we do a lot of stuff with Special Olympics, and we actually just started a CERT team, which is a community emergency response team. It's actually the first in Castle County, Delaware. So that's fun.
I'm Sheena Mattis. I'm a special education teacher at McLean High School. I also teach yoga and run a program for at-risk youth, encouraging them to go to college. I attended NCCL kindergarten to 8th grade, graduated in 2006, and went on to Newark High School.
My name's Lauren Hansen. I did not go to NCCL. My two kids did. Both my sons attended NCCL. Tyler was here from kindergarten through 8th grade, and he graduated here in 2008. And Clayton was here for 1st grade through 8th grade, and he graduated from here in 2013. Both of them went on to Newark High School, where they did very well. Tyler attended Ohio University, where he graduated with a degree in sport management, and Clayton is in his 1st year at North Carolina State University.
Does he know what he wants to major in?
Oh, he's majoring in math. He's known that for a really long time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Well, the first question we're asking that people are really concerned about and worried about and wonder about is, what was high school like? What was it like? So some of you were here from the beginning all the way through before you went to high school, and some of you transferred here and transferred out, and then went to high school from there. So I don't know, you could just jump in, and we don't have to go in order, or if you have to. So people want to know, how did going to a school like NCCL impact your high school experience, for good and bad? Did you have any struggles with transitioning, or how do you feel like going to a school like NCCL helped you in high school? Or your children? It's supposed to be another thing.
Well, when I picked a high school, I picked St. Mark's for the exact reason that I was a number, because I had 7 years of being a person with a name, and I kind of wanted something different for a change, so I picked St. Mark's to get the larger experience. I got what I wanted, so, and I enjoyed it. It was good.
When I graduated from NCCL, I was probably really terrified, and so I wanted to choose a school that was sort of small for like a high school. We have like, at Wilmington Friends, we have about maybe 70 kids in my class, which is pretty small. And so I'm fitting pretty well there. I feel like NCCL had helped me find who I am and the type of people who I want to be, who I want to hang out with. So I thought NCCL had helped me find my friends.
So, are we just going down the line, or is just? Okay. Just wanted to, I don't want to like jump over
But
to
just
you.
gotta have a student who's interested. And Conrad's open house is tonight, as is Newark High's, competing
So I did go to Conrad, and I think just to touch on some of the things with that, I think the biggest transition for me specifically was going from a graduating class of 10 people to a graduating class of 150. And at first I was kind of worried, like, will I be able to integrate myself? I've been going to a school where my class was 10 people for the past 8 years. I was wondering how I was going to integrate myself into that and what that was going to look like. And I think the big thing for me was getting involved in something. So I wanted it, which is something I really recommend. I started doing football before I went to Conrad my first year as a freshman. So there's preseason. So it was like, instead of the analogy I give people is, instead of coming into the lunchroom on the first day and doing that look left, look right, where do I sit? It was, I already knew some people coming in because of preseason. I already knew what I was doing. So it kind of made it a little bit smaller. So I think that was the only not bad thing, but that was the only struggle I feel like I had to overcome. On the other end of things, I feel like I was able to think differently than just about all of my other peers in my class. Instead of looking at the thing of, here's a problem, what's the answer? It's, what's the problem? How do I solve it? Is there a way around this? It was much more of this idea of like design thinking, because at NCCL I feel like we were more presented with situations, and then it was find your own way to come about to the answer to it, whereas some of my other peers in high school would look at it as, you know, there's only one way to do it, so I was able to find other ways to do things, which benefited me a lot, I think.
Sure. So I guess one thing I can say is, so I went to a public elementary school, and I really struggled with test anxiety a lot, with like standardized tests, and the DSTV was like the worst thing for me. And so when looking for a middle school, we decided to come here because we didn't have tests, and it took off some of that pressure. And I think one thing parents and students might worry about is going back to high school, like how are people going to deal with tests if they haven't ever had them their entire life? And I actually think that coming to NCCL and learning how to cope with those kinds of things and think, like Ethan was saying, like think critically and in those different ways. Going into high school, I had no test anxiety whatsoever, and like even to this day, I still don't stress about tests, which a lot of my peers still do. So I think that was one thing that was actually really valuable and probably the opposite of what some people might expect.
Yeah, I can kind of relate a little bit. I didn't really have much trouble at all academically adjusting to high school after NCCL. But socially, I had a really hard time my freshman year. Like, I didn't really make many friends, and that's why I switched to Newark High School. And then Newark High School, like, I wasn't doing as great academically, but I had a lot of friends socially. But I think that, like, I don't know, maybe there was a correlation there. But, I mean, I think the main difference is that, like, when you're going to a school like Stanford, which is, like, my graduating class was 65 people. So when you're going to a school like that, it's pretty small, you're having a lot of adult engagement, like, constantly. There's just adults looking over your shoulder. Like, even though you're being graded, it's kind of like here, where you're just always having people that are kind of nurturing you. And that really promotes a successful learning environment. In public school, you can be successful too, but like you kind of have to have your own motivation. You can't just like rely on adults telling you to do things. Like, you have to want to do things. But I think if you have like that internal, like desire to learn and the desire to like, be creative and to, be motivated to discover new things, like you can be successful in either environment. That's why I returned to Stanford, because I learned how to socialize more in the public school environment. And then I returned and I was able to be successful both socially and academically.
I know as a parent, I worried a lot about how my kids would transition from NCCL to a public school, because we were pretty sure they'd go to Newark. It was our feeder school, so it was something that worried me for years. And even though I heard parents say it'll be okay, I don't think I really felt okay until my son Tyler started at Newark, and he did just fine. He adjusted well. I think one thing that helped both my boys adjust to life at a new big school was that they're very active in sports. So they got involved in sports right away. The practices started for fall sports. They started in the middle of August. So They did that for a couple weeks before school started. So when school started, they actually had a new set of friends to just start off with. They had some buddies to hang around with in the big new school. So that really helped them a lot. So if your kids are involved in band or anything like that, I think any kind of activity really helps them get acclimated. Another positive thing that they both took from NCCL was that they had very good and close relationships with their teachers here. They learned to deal with adults as people and not scary people that you can't approach. And they carry that with them to this day. They were very close with their teachers in high school. They weren't afraid to approach them, and even in college, I told Clayton, is make sure, if you need to talk to one of your professors, do that. Oh, I've already been to his office hours 4 times. Okay, I'm glad you're comfortable. So,
I would second that, like, being comfortable with adults is definitely something you come out of here with, and it's like, I look at my friends and they're like, I'm too scared to go talk to my professor. I'm like, why? It's just a person, like, you go talk to them. No, that's a great skill.
Yeah, I would third that. Like,
Yeah.
the teacher first names thing is not just like symbolic. I think it really does develop a lot of like interpersonal skills that like you carry on later on in life.
Avon Grove, the biggest difference was how big it was. I went from 6 people to 450 just in my class, and while I really, some of the benefits were that there was a lot more opportunity, there was a lot more diverse things that I could get involved in, like more advanced classes, as well as a long list of activities, and the activities have been one of the things I've really most enjoyed about it. I did struggle socially a little bit at the beginning, trying to talk to people because there were so many people and I didn't really know any of them. And I didn't realize it at the time how bad I was at talking to people, but looking back on it with some of my friends now, they were like, yeah, you were terrible. But getting involved early in something was really important. I met a lot of my friends who are still pretty close friends in the Model UN Club. It was the first thing I started, and that's where I met people and really started talking to people. Academically, it wasn't a big transition. I feel like the teaching group 4 set me up to be successful in some of my classes, and in math, for example, we went over everything I needed to know, basic algebra, but we also went into other subjects, and when I'd see it down the road, it'd be like, oh, we did that a little while ago. I recognize that. Even this year, when we've been doing calculus, I still recognize little bits that I learned, or the basics of back in 8th grade.
I think the biggest thing for me was kind of trying to adjust from not being so close with my teachers. Like, I can still go to like my teachers and ask them questions and stuff like that, but I think on a first name basis, I think that would be a little bit inappropriate. But yeah, I think that I still kind of have the same perspective as I did at NCCL. I mean, I know that they're there to help me, and if I ever need anything, I can go to talk to them. I think, again, like a lot of my friends kind of don't really want to like go talk to teachers and think that they won't really help them, but anytime that I've gone to a teacher, they've helped me with really anything that I need. I think going from NCCL to Padua, I think you just have to be kind of motivated and want to learn. I think if you don't really have that motivation, you're not going to really do successful, especially at Padua, because it's very like work heavy, and you kind of, I think NCCL taught me a lot to be independent and like want to do things on my own and get things done, and I think that really helped me because, you know, at Padua, you don't have, like everyone else said, you don't really have like a teacher like standing over top of you telling you, you know, you need to get this done, get that done. I think on that level, NCCL really prepared me for that. So.
I think the greatest gift that NCCL gives students is intrinsic motivation and learning for learning's sake. Something that a lot of my students don't have is just wanting to learn for the sake of learning rather than for the grade. And that's something that I think is really important here, is you're taught to learn to better yourself, to educate yourself, to learn more. And I think that's just a really great skill that you'll carry into high school, is wanting to learn for yourself, and that just self-motivation.
I'm sure, and then afterwards, if people have more specific questions about high school, we can ask them. It's, having known a lot of you, so another thing, I don't know, buddies is one of our favorite things at NCCL. Several students have talked about it just this week, how much they love buddies. And Johanna is the person who brought that idea to NCCL. Yeah! You can start with that if there's anything else, but what experiences at NCCL were important to you? Like, did you think of things that you really, or like your kids that you really enjoyed or meant something you think about still? But I don't know, do you want to say why you came up with buddies? I thought that was so, and you were in 5th grade your first year.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably just like the first week of school, and I think we had an all-school meeting, and someone was like, we're trying to come up with new ideas for how to get older kids and younger kids to like interact more. And it's like, we should have like a big brother, big sister kind of program. And then it kind of turned into buddies.
Yeah,
Glad to hear it.
Sort of experiences or memories that were important to you remember?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of the big programs that I remember, the first one, I think was, if I get the name wrong now, I'm sorry, but Workshop Week? I think, okay, cool. And for Group 3 and Group 4, I really liked how there was this entire week where instead of you got off your normal schedule and you were doing stuff that you signed up for, getting skills in things that you wouldn't be able to do anywhere else. So everything from box sport to making box sports to doing different sports to creating things to woodworking and all this other stuff that we wouldn't have been able to do in any other middle school or any other elementary school or anywhere else was skills that we were able to get here. And the other part that I really liked in Group 3, every other week we would have a free time on Fridays, which was a take this time, create something, do something, but it's up to you. We just had to run it by the teachers. And I still remember like going through and I would sit down with friends and we would make up board games and all this stuff. And it was, again, it's like these skills that I didn't realize I was creating about like critical thinking, design thinking, working in a team, leadership, all these other things that I didn't realize I was learning at the time, but looking back, it was all intrinsically motivated because it was things that I wanted to create, which I think was a really cool aspect.
I mean, Workshop Week is the greatest. One of the projects that I did during Workshop Week, we were just talking about this, was the backpack project. So that was sort of one of my first steps into the community service world, and sort of started me down that path. So definitely grateful for that. And then also, I guess I'm thankful for the camping trips. Yeah, just because I think if like I hadn't had those experiences, I would have not have come as far in my coping with anxiety and being away from home and those kinds of things. But it definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone. Like the first time I went down to Shavers Creek, I cried for like half an hour at the band. It's like, it was bad. But then I got there and I did it and I realized that I could do it and it wasn't as scary and I had people around me that cared about me and it was like a very safe way to push yourself into new experiences in order that you can overcome these things.
I want to, echo off of that real quick. The campings were like one of my favorite things every single year. We would do all these really cool things that I would never have a chance to do anywhere else. From rock climbing and high ropes courses, I still remember. I think you were telling me to go at one point, and like motivating me to like keep going because I didn't want to step out onto the thing. And every time I was so glad that I did because there was the wire and it was like 100-yard drop down. But it was like all this stuff that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do anywhere else. It was really great.
Yeah, I have to agree with Johanna about the, like, I guess my favorite part of the camping trip, like, they usually, like, involved me, like, sobbing on the second day, like, I just want to go home. call my mom. But like, overall, I think like, one, it was like a great experience and a lot of fun, but two, it also just like taught me that sometimes like you gotta suck it up and get through like the hard time to have a good time. And yeah. But another thing I really enjoyed about NCCL, and this is just like something that's come back to me recently after being here, is like just like the culture, like the bizarre trends that we have here. Like, do you remember like when we were in middle school and we were just like playing die-hard chess games?
Oh yeah,
Just
there
like
was like
really
100
aggressive.
chess things in group 3, and every single recess, everyone would break them out. There'd be like 30 kids on the floor all playing chess.
Yeah, we'd be talking
Great.
trash to each other. Or like, you know, like everyone was getting involved. And I mean, even today, you know, I was looking at those like I am the person who, and you know, like there's kids with magic cards in their hands. And those things are from like what, the 90s? Like it's just crazy. Like I love it though. It's so unique.
I really did enjoy the camping trips because it was an opportunity to, you had a lot of freedom on them. You had a lot of time where you just had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? And it really was a good bonding experience with friends to figure out like, oh, there's all this stuff that I can do, and it was really an enjoyable time, and it was a nice break from what we normally would do all the time. Also, the class structure was something that was a bit nicer than high school. Not only that everything is in the same place, that you don't have to be running all over school, but that we had, the longer periods were nice, and it was nice that we weren't doing the same thing every day. That we would visit subjects on a regular schedule, but that we had time to really delve into what we were doing. That there was a lot more flexibility to get done, to do fun projects, and really try to get what you want to get out of it.
Yeah, adding on to what Brennan said, I really enjoyed how the teachers knew us individually as people and as learners, so they knew our weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses, and how they can push us. And also, I feel like the camping trips were quite fun. And yeah, what Brennan said, it was a great bonding experience. We got to push our limits, get outside our comfort zone. I really like the people who helped run the place at Chambers Creek. I don't remember their names, sadly, but they're really cool people. And yeah, workshop week was also a pretty cool week because we also got to do things that we didn't really know how to. It was like some cool life skills we learned.
I think what I really enjoyed about NCCL was just like the smallness of the classes and just how personal everything was. I think like a lot of the time in classrooms now you can't really have that kind of closest and personal time with the people in your class. So like I think with NCCL, like what everyone else was saying, you kind of had the opportunity to really get to know the people that you were spending almost every single day with. And I think that really reinforced a lot of my friendships because even 5th grade, I'm still friends with to this day, like people that I had just met in 5th grade and didn't really know. And I think like people that I didn't think that I would ever still be friends with, I'm friends with. And I think like again, like with the teachers, they really helped me kind of get to know who I was as a person and find who like I was and kind of like the groups of people that I enjoyed being around. So like with the camping trips and everything, I got to kind of really get to know who I am as a person and be with my friends the whole time through it. So.
Yeah, I mean, the camping trips were awesome. I brought friends and we've camped at Williams Pond, Trap Pond, we've camped everywhere, so sorry. Trap Pond, I've done a lot, but apprenticing was a big thing for me because when I was a junior in high school, I was looking for a job and I happened to walk into the fire tent where I apprenticed in 7th grade, and I didn't even ask. They were like, "Are you looking for a job? Here, take an application. You should," because it was the manager who was the manager when I was an apprentice there. So my first job came out of, they knew I had a good work ethic from apprenticing. So that inspired my love of model rockets, which to this day I still have because I run a deep space club at Alumni Middle School. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot that you don't realize what was inspired until like it comes back up and you're like, oh, like I realized I was really still into computer programming and well, web design is one of the things that I came back into, and I remember sitting in group 4 like lab and like just sitting there and like making web pages about like with HTML in like 5th and 6th grade. And it was like, and I was like, I don't even know why I remember that, but it comes back to you.
Agreed, workshop week is probably the reason I can like cook breakfast for myself. Still remember learning how to cook an egg. Yeah, I would agree with pretty much everyone else. Workshop week, camping, apprenticeships, they're all just really great experiences that you might not otherwise get at a traditional school.
Yeah, I can't really speak for my sons. I probably have a whole different set of memories than they do. But I know they did enjoy those things that everybody else has mentioned as well, the apprenticing. And they both apprenticed the same places. Their first year was at Days of Nights, which they both loved. The second year was at the 5 and 10, which they didn't like so much, but they learned to fold clothes really well. So awesome.
Tyler got a red tuxedo from it.
He
Congratulations.
he admired the ghastly colored tuxes that they had there, was bright red one, and he loved, and they actually gave it to him. Like, finished up there. Probably no one else wanted it. He loved this suit. He still has it. He's not getting rid of that. He's got a suit. Oh, goodness. It was something.
Well, anything as a parent that you appreciated about your kids being here? Some memories, like you said, you have different memories, but what were some things that our current parents might look forward to missing?
Just different instances that stood out. One for me was the government unit that Group 3 does. That I thought was really interesting myself, just the different types of governments that they learned about, and just actually living by those governments for a few days in each case while they were in that class. And when Tyler went through that, it was the one and only time that Sean had a student be the dictator, and that was Tyler. And it was a very interesting experiment because he kind of let it go to his head. He was having to do things, and he told the girls they couldn't talk to each other, which just about killed them. They decided to ignore him. But he ended up being kind of ostracized from his classmates for a day or two because they were mad at him for these rules. And Sean decided maybe it wasn't such a good idea. Once the unit was over, everything was fine. Went back to class, but it was a very interesting experiment. So that was something that stood out in my mind. And I mean, I said really, it just sort of broadened my thinking to things that, I mean, I grew up going to public school, and it was just sort of a typical public school experience. So this was very different for me. I mean, when I first visited here, looking for a kindergarten for Tyler, I was actually pregnant with Clayton at the time. Looking around, I visited, and I told my husband, I said, we found the right place. I said, it's a total hippie school, but it's awesome, and I think it'll be great. And it was. We were here for a total of 14 years, and it was an amazing experience all around.
I think I also wanted to add, like, just in Group 3 and 4, we were just so weird, like, and it was awesome because, like, I remember just being in like Group 3, just like making up songs, just like weird little things that we would do, and it would just bring us all so much closer together because I kind of found people that were like me, and that I didn't really need to act like anyone else because I could just be who I wanted to be and do what I wanted to do because everyone else was pretty much the same way. So.
So we could be ourselves.
Well, how did, sort of bigger question, how do you feel, some of you have been out in the world for a little while, and some of you are in college, you're still in high school, so you're still imagining this, but I'm wondering, like, how did NCCL like shape you as a person, or how do you feel like you take NCCL with you, or how does it influence you today? I mean, I speak to Jonathan Word.
Can we come back to me really quick?
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, yeah. Chime in.
It actually changed me, even though I wasn't a student here. It sort of changed my politics, made me more aware of the world in general, and made me a lot more sympathetic to what goes on in other cultures and other areas of the world. So I learned from my kids being here. Now, I think I already mentioned what I think my kids got from being here, and just in terms of some of the other things that the others have said, like the curiosity, the intellectual drive that they had, and being able to talk to people is great. So that's about it.
Academically, I'd say really strong writing skills. Writing and reading are really emphasized here. I think that come out with some really great skills. In terms of math, you come out with the skill to look at a problem from a realistic standpoint rather than just how to plug numbers into an equation. As a person, it's part of the reason I went into teaching. I love helping others. I love the learning process. And I think a lot of that comes from being at NCCL and the experience I've had here.
Definitely the asking questions. When I first got to high school, I would ask a lot of questions, and no one else seemed to ever ask any questions in class. And I always sat there like, why are you asking questions? Because if you ask the right questions, the teacher will go on a long tangent, and you don't have to have homework. Like, why are you asking questions? Because it would work, but nobody seemed to like do it. I don't know. And I kept that with me all throughout high school and college, because if you knew the right question to ask, the professor would go all the way with, like, to a whole other country. But definitely the writing skills, that was a big thing, and just being curious about everything. It's been said, and there's a lot that you carry with you, and trying to like pick a couple things out is really hard, because like,
Well, Sarah, you were visiting a couple weeks ago and said, you talked about failing. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's such a great thing.
well, so when I first got into college, I hadn't taken calculus, and for some reason, I don't know why I did this, but I took calculus and physics at the same time. I didn't do well. I failed both the classes, but I actually learned more about how I learned as a person, because it was my first semester in college, and I learned more about how I actually learn in the college setting than I probably would if I had just scraped by and got a passing grade and just gotten the credit. And I honestly felt that was more beneficial to me, because I realized at that point that maybe physics isn't the way to go for me, and maybe I should do the tech writing and then write about the physics. So that's what I did, and that's where I'm working towards, which is why I'm at Average Proving Ground, so that I can get towards where I want to go. But learning to fail was something that I don't know if I would have taken it the same way I did if I hadn't been at NCCL, and yeah, I mean, that's definitely a big thing.
I think when I first came to NCCL, I hated writing. I just despised it, because I feel like at the school that I went to, it was kind of more treated as you have to do this to get this certain grade. So I think when I did eventually come to NCCL, I was taught just not even how to write, but just how to think for myself, and just how to kind of not even the structure of it, just how to think and how to create a paper that is actually worth reading. And I think with all of the projects that we did, the newspaper project, and what's the book that we just did, picture book story. I think this one's really helped me because I kind of just learned like how to just write for myself and stuff like that. So now in high school, my friends like struggle so much with writing, and I'll finish one in like 20 minutes, just like my essay. But yeah, that really helped me, and I think just again, like with the teachers, just everything being so personal, I think it was easier for me to go to my teachers when I needed help, and it was easier for me to just talk to people and get to kind of get to know them on that skill. I think socially, what I took from NCCL, I did struggle a little bit freshman year just because I talked to everyone, and I think just kind of developing deeper friendships more than just like, hey, how are you, walking down the hall. I think like with everything I said before, just like developing those deeper friendships and yeah, pretty much that.
Well, when I was at NCCL, I was really bad at math, and I just thought I was really bad at it. But when I got to high school, I realized that the math at NCCL was just way hard for our age level, because when we got to, when I was a freshman, we learned everything I learned in 7th and 8th grade, and it was just like so easy for me. And so I found that NCCL had really helped me with my learning capabilities in math, which I very much enjoy nowadays. And I feel like the buddy system had also helped me overlook these age gaps between underclassmen and upperclassmen, because I don't see myself as an upperclassman just because I act like myself, which is something that NCCL had taught me. But I socialize with freshmen, sophomores, and even seniors. And when I was a freshman, I couldn't really do that because I was labeled as this new freshman underclassman who couldn't talk to the upperclassmen. So I'm just like, because of NCCL, I'm trying to change that a bit at my school.
One thing is trying to figure out how and why everything works, instead of just accepting that it works. And this does involve asking a lot of questions and knowing when to ask questions so that the teachers will actually answer. And that was the difficult part, because a lot of things that you have questions about, the teachers would leave unsaid because it would take too much of their time and they have a curriculum to get through. My sister was even telling me about this one thing she asked about, and I was like, oh, I asked that same question, and she got the same answer. We can't talk about it. There's not enough time. And I had another thing. I'll get back to that.
I mean, yeah, like I think NCCL like does a really good job considering we don't have tests or grades or anything. I mean, I visited like a few days ago and I was looking at my old stuff and I was like, holy crap, I wrote this when I was 13. Like, you know, everyone thinks they're like just this cringy little kid when you're in middle school. Like, you know, like I was just, when Kate offered to show me my old stuff, I was like, oh God, do I even want to open this up? And then when I did, I was really regretting it because it was terrible not. But no, I mean, like, honestly, I think I was a better writer, like, in middle school than I am, like, today. Just because I haven't been working those muscles, but, like, gosh, like I can't believe how, like, well, like, my brain was tuned just at that time. And even with math, I mean, like, I tested out of Algebra 1, but, like, I couldn't, like, I didn't know I was taking algebra in middle school. Like, we were just doing math, you know? Like, same as the other Miranda, you know, like, I thought I was bad at math too, but, you know, like, I was advanced for my grade level. So, you know, I think NCCL does a pretty surprising job. Like, pretty good. Like, well, you know what I mean. Like, it's not a traditional school, you know?
I did remember that thing I was going to say. I was also going to say, one of the other things I learned was really how to teach myself. And because in class here, we were able to expand on what we learned and to look into new directions. And specifically with computer programming was the thing I really did this with. During workshop week, we had a workshop for it. And through that, I found I was really interested in it. So I went and I bought a book and I did a project and was trying to figure things out by needing to do it. I had something I wanted to do, and that really motivated me to learn.
Yeah, I mean, just sort of echoing what everyone else has already said, like even if NCCL doesn't teach you in a traditional public school way, like you learn the important skills that you need to succeed in high school and then in college, and then I'm sure blank when I get there. But like the intrinsic motivation and the curiosity and like critical thinking, all the writing skills, that's definitely really accurate. And like socially, just how to be yourself. I would agree that we were all super weird in middle school, but like it was accepted here that you could be weird, and then you know that you can go out and you know how to identify the other people that are good people. So, yeah, good life skills.
I think one of the great things about NCCL is the community that the school created, and I think moving on from NCCL, I kept searching for a community like that, and I think that led me to different places throughout high school and throughout college to make a big class at a high school small and a big university small, and I think that was a really good idea, a really great idea that would be put in me, is this idea that there is a niche wherever you go, you will find your people. It might take a little while, but you do find your people, you do find your friends, and I think that's one of the great things that I got from NCCL. Also, another thing that I got from NCCL moving forward, I think, was I really like schmoozing. I like going around, talking to whoever, wherever, at a lot of different times, and this idea, especially when we got to college, of like networking and getting around and meeting people who were in different fields. I never had an issue of going up to someone 30 years older than me and going like, "Hi, I'm Ethan, what's your name?" Which I think is something that came from NCCL, because we had that idea of adults aren't scary. It's adults are people, I guess is a good way to put it. So I think that's a great thing that NCCL was able to give me, was that this idea that figures of authority don't have to be scary. Figures of authority can be approachable and is incredibly beneficial to be approachable.
Before we get to questions, first of all, I want to say it is so interesting to hear these students say, so for Brendan, we get so frustrated about the schedule, if you didn't stick to the schedule, to hear you say that you love the flexibility. This is so helpful for me as a teacher when my kids are telling me things now. Like it's really, and then both Miranda and Johanna, I spent time on camping trips with tears and guided imagery and trying to keep you guys there. And now that's like one of your favorite parts. It's just really great to hear. And then Sarah, you're a writer, and I remember you were my first year back, and just like that was like so yeah, just like a struggle, and that you're a writer now. That just is really wonderful to hear you guys say this thing. It's important for us. But did anyone have anything they didn't get to say before the questions, or something you thought of that you wanted to share?
At my school, we actually do big sister, little sister. So like the seniors will have little sisters as like the freshmen. So I think for me, going into high school, it was a lot easier because, well, my sister was already a senior when I was going into freshman year. So I kind of already knew a lot of the seniors. So it wasn't really hard for me to just go up to the seniors and be like, "Hey, what's up?" Or like during lunch, we sit by like grades. So I would just be like walking around the cafe, just talking to everyone. I think the people that I did talk to were a little surprised. But yeah, I think the buddy thing, I kind of learned just how to be associated with like younger kids. Even now, like with the grade under like the freshmen now, like I even just talk to them. I know a lot of the freshmen that are in there now, so I think just learning to treat everyone kind of as a person because that's who they are. But, yeah.
I think also one of the great things that NCCL did is teaching about reading for enjoyment, that a lot of my other peers didn't get to experience that. And I think it's something that unfortunately I've begun to lose over time, is that reading for enjoyment, just because now I have 20 different textbooks with textbooks with 100 pages in each a week. There's not as much time for reading and enjoyment, but that was one of my favorite things about NCCL was here's reading, pick a book, take an hour, go read it. And I think that was a really beautiful thing to be able to do.
Okay, does anyone have, I had to go back after what Alexander's going to take over. You can question and answer, then hopefully everyone will stay and snacks and. Thanks, Alexander. So if anyone has questions.
Ask away, you know you have things to ask.
Reading like school books, like.
I have a couple of targeted questions. This is, my understanding is at Sanford, there's a heavy requirement on like participating in sports. Is that the case?
Yes, actually, I don't know if it's like that at Friends still too,
Well,
but
It is, but there's this course at Friends where you get to take fitness where you don't have to play any game or do any like game sport related stuff. It's just like working out.
yeah. When I was at Stanford, they had to switch. Like my freshman year, there was like a requirement where you had to do 8 sports before you graduated, which is like, yeah, it's very extreme. Like, I mean, even the average athlete doesn't play like 8 sports over their like, you know, senior or their whole high school career. But you know, they changed that so you can do like extracurricular activities like clubs and like stage crew and being in the play. It's basically just like, it's a college prep school and they want you to get into college. They want you to have like a juicy resume. But I'm gonna be blatantly honest here, guys. Like, don't judge a little bit, but like, I did not have all my extracurricular credits when I graduated. I actually had 3 out of 8. So like,
And they let you leave.
yeah, if you don't address it throughout your entire like, you know, high school career, there's a good chance they won't approach you, and then like they're not going to make you stay for 5 years to make it up, you know.
And Conrad, there's no art program there, as I understand it. Is that right?
So in terms of arts, I didn't take those classes in there. I know that there's music, I know that there's choir. I haven't been there in
A while?
in a while. I'm sure a lot of things have changed. I do remember that there was music and choir, or orchestra and choir, I should say. Besides that, I know that there's a lot of extracurriculars around arts. There's a very active theater group, stuff like that. But unfortunately, I'm not the person to ask for that question anymore.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a little.
What advice do you have for students as they're moving into high school, like for those first couple months and that first fall?
I'd say the first thing is get involved in something that's not just school. Find some sport or some extracurricular, because it's a really good way to meet people and start to develop those friendships.
I would say not finding your group of people in the first couple months is completely fine. It takes a little while for everyone, and everyone in most cases is coming in with the same type of thing, where you know there's a whole bunch of middle schools, a whole bunch of middle schools going into now a feeder school or a private school or wherever it may be, and everyone's looking around for new friends. And it's not that you know you're coming. We are coming here from a small school, but everyone else is in the exact same position. So it's okay to wait a little while to find your friends, and making sure that those friends are the kind of people that you want to be around is worth waiting.
So what I would have to say is, please be yourself. Like, don't be afraid to be who you are. Because when you get to high school, they're gonna be like, there's probably gonna be a friend group who you're gonna that you're gonna develop around with, and your social life will work out if you be yourself.
Don't limit yourself just to high school. I know my core group of friends came through my church group. I actually, my best friend, we knew each other all throughout, like since 3rd grade. We did Sunday school, we did youth group together. It wasn't until freshman year in college when she barged into my dorm room to watch episode of Doctor Who because she refused to watch it by herself that we really became best friends. I don't even know how she got in the building. She just showed up in my room. I'm like, what are you doing here? But I mean, we live together now, and I don't know what I would do without her. But limit yourself just to high school. So if you don't necessarily have an interest in some of the things that are, there are other things in the community, and especially in this area, there's a lot of things in the community. So don't limit yourself just to high school. But I mean, I had a great group of friends in high school too, so like from the school. But a lot of my friends were went to all different high schools.
Yeah, and that's some backwards advice, but also just like don't be yourself, because like trying new things is sometimes like pretty cool, you know. Like I never thought I would like ceramics, but like I took a ceramics class in high school because I figured they couldn't give me homework. I ended up like absolutely in love with it. And, you know, like I would stay in the workshop like after school like all the time, just working on my like little bowls, but you know like it's really cool. And you meet a lot of people and you're just like, you know, you'll be like chatting with other people and you'll be like, man, you know, I can't get this clay centered, like this is so frustrating, and you know, like, it's just, those kinds of things are really good bonding experiences. And I said the same thing about like labs at the UD, like they're not fun, but like you get to meet people because you're just sitting there complaining with each other.
This is a non which school to go to question, but for all of you, what was your greatest academic challenge coming from NCCL to the high school experience? Either the culture or an area that you wanted to be stronger in, because they go about things completely differently, don't they, from what you said?
I think freshman year kind of came at me guns blazing, because I was just so used to, like, again, like teachers being like right next to me throughout the whole thing. So I think just learning to be independent and learning to kind of get things done, you kind of have to have that motivation to want to do things. And I think NCCL does a really good job with doing that and motivating you to want to like learn and want to know things. So I think that was my biggest challenge, was just staying on top of everything, because you know, you have 7 to 8 different classes that you're now keeping up with instead of, you know, maybe 5. So I think that would be the biggest thing.
For me, it was math. Math was a huge challenge because it was all online my freshman year, pretty much. There was a teacher in the room, but everything was on the computer, and it was just plug in the numbers, just do it, rather than really thinking about it. But I was able to overcome that. Something I encourage all students to do is staying after school with the teacher. At NCCL, you can just go talk to your teacher. You don't have to wait, but they might not be able to do that in a much larger class. And almost all teachers are willing to stay after, and that's, I think, where you can build those relationships in high school and really get to know your teachers. And they're much more willing to sit down and discuss things with you as well.
I think coping with the amount of homework was a bit of a challenge too. I don't feel like my boys were overburdened with it, but compared to the amount of homework they had at NCCL, it was a big jump. So they had to learn to manage their time and get it all done.
Same, managing my time was definitely one of the difficult things, and it's something I'm still trying to get better at. But one of the things I found that was really useful is they give us agenda books at our school, and it's really useful to just write everything down. Even if you say, oh, it's something small, remember it, just write it down, because then you can't really forget anything, and you'll always have an easy way to see what you need to be doing.
Even in work to now, like I write everything down. Like even if it's just a note, like I have like so many notes on my computer. Like there's sticky notes. There's like 7 across the top of my computer with like scroll down. So I mean, I have like writing notes is a big thing. Keeping like track of things, because I'm always forgetting things.
I think my biggest academic challenge after NCCL isn't even like really necessarily a challenge. It's more just like a stubbornness, and I think something that maybe a lot of people that went to NCCL might have in them. But it's just kind of like, sometimes when you're doing schoolwork, you have to do things that are sort of arbitrary, and like, you know, maybe like those extra practice things, like worksheets that are more like repetitive and stuff. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. And you know, like, I really have struggled with doing those things and turning them in. Like, one of my lowest grades in college is like Spanish 200, which was like a class I thought I was too good for, and like as a result I just didn't do any of the work, and like it's one of my lowest grades even though I had like A's on all my exams. But I mean, like, yeah, like, I think just in terms of academics, like, being able to force yourself to do something that you don't necessarily want to do, just because it's like part of the way you have to play the game. Like, I think that's a big thing that you gotta learn after leaving here, because you can't just do things because they're like gonna improve your knowledge. Sometimes you have to do things because they're gonna improve your grade, you know?
I guess I would agree with those things, the jumping from maybe 3 math problems for homework to like a worksheet of math problems for homework, and then you do sort of feel like, I understand this, I don't want to do it kind of thing. And just the general amount of work and keeping track of all of it, I would probably say was the hardest.
I think I had a little bit of trouble at testing at first. Coming out, I had been here from 1st grade all the way through 8th grade, and I hadn't taken a bubble sheet test except for Group 4's boot camp. And it was a big change, and I don't think it affected me for long. I would say it was the first 2 or 3 that I was looking at this, so I was like, and I couldn't really quite remember how Group 4 done the boot camp, and I was pretty sure that you filled how to fill it in, but there were some parts that gave me trouble every now and then, and I had to explain to a teacher that I didn't really understand what I was doing on this, even though I thought that it was really straightforward, and they thought it was really straightforward. But as soon as I got past that hump, I'd say the end of the 2nd month, testing was fine for me.
I have a strange question. So, one of my biggest challenges is trying to explain to people where I've been to school before high school.
Yes.
And I'm very curious as to whether you don't tell anybody anything, or you give them the big long story and they're like, enough. Or like, what do you say when people say, what school did you go to before this? What did you say in high school?
So,
Because that's a hard thing to decide.
so I think what I would do is usually go like, I went to a very small private school in Newark that didn't really teach the same way, and then I would go through the basics of we call teachers by a first name, we sat on couches, and I've never gotten a report card in my life. I would get the strangest looks, and people were like looking at me like, where did you go to school? Why couldn't I go to school? And how did you get in here without a report card? But I don't think I ever had an issue telling people that where I went and all that kind of good stuff. I think I felt proud of it.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I would say really small private school, and then they'd be like, "Oh, what school?" Because like they think they know. They were so for creative learning, and they're like, "Huh?
What?
The trick was
NCCL,
don't mention the name of it, because 99 out of 100 people won't know what you're talking about, or will think it's something else.
I don't know, like, my high school was just like a more pretentious version of NCCL. I mean, like, we had like an all-school meeting every day. Like, we all gathered in one room and sat on the floor together and listened to announcements. So like, for me, like, culturally at Stanford, I mean, yeah, you know, the academics are a little more rigid. There's like stuff you're trying to do to bolster your college resume, but like, at the same time, like, you can sort of explain to someone you went to a hippy-dippy middle school because you're going to a hippy-dippy high school.
Which both schools are thrilled.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, whenever someone asks me what middle school I went to, I always tell them, you probably won't know it. And when I do explain to them, they're like, so you went to a hippie school.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of my friends at my school, they all like went to the same school, so they kind of like all like know each other, and like the sort of schools around there, so like St. Mary Magdalene, like all of those different like little schools. So whenever they would ask me like, Jasmine, like even now they ask me, Jasmine, where did you go to school? Because you know it just never came up. Like I'm proud to say where I'm from, but I'm just like, you guys won't know like where I'm from. And so even now I'm just like, hey, like I went to a school with only like 80 people. And they were like, oh, where did you go to school? I was like, yeah, NCCL. And they're like, yeah, I never heard of it.
Yeah, I would say I went to a tiny private school in Newark, and then I would add, I had a graduating class of 7 people, just to give them some perspective, because my sophomore year in high school, we had about 400 students from like 30 different middle schools and 5 high schools at that point, so it wasn't really like a shock that there were
weird looks when you explain it, like you're never ashamed of it, because it just shaped you in so many good ways, and I'm always like, no, it's like why I'm the person that I am today, and all these positive things, so.
It's like, it's not our fault we're cooler than you guys.
Are there any more questions?
I have a question. How did you all decide which high school to go to?
I went because, well, one of the main reasons was my sister already went there, so I think I kind of got to know the school through her, and I think I just really liked the community type sense, because not that it was necessarily like Padua, but since it is a Catholic school, you kind of still have that sense of community, as like it is like a church type thing, and every like month we'll have like a liturgy, so you're sitting with like your class and the same people. So I think I'm just, and the teachers are the same way. They treat you as like as a student, and I think yeah, that was pretty one of the big reasons.
Well, I did mention this earlier. I wanted to be a number, and St. Mark's did have a huge population, but I also had ADHD, and one of the things that led me to St. Mark's is they have an Emmaus program, which is they give you extra help, and they let you get extra time for testing. So I went there for that because it's a really great program, and I actually I love the teachers that ran it. So that was part of the reason. I'm not Catholic, so that was a fun thing. But I am, and I do go to church. So it was there were some trying moments, especially. I mean, it was just, but I mean, it was good. I liked it, and I got what I wanted, and I enjoyed it.
New York High School is free, and I'm pretty sure that had a factor in the public school decision. And I know my parents also really wanted me to have a diverse experience, which I did. Culture shock indeed, but good experience.
Well, Wilmington Friends is not free, but it is a private school, and I wanted to stay in that private school vibe sort of thing, because when I walk through the halls at WFS, I don't feel like I'm in a high school, but I feel like I'm in kind of like a home, like how I felt at NCCL. Like NCCL isn't your average middle school, so that's why I chose Friends.
I started by visiting a bunch of schools. I ended up applying to Newark Charter, CAB, and Wilmington Charter, and got waitlisted at each. And because of that, in February, after all that, I decided, oh, I guess I'll visit the backup Applegrove, and it turned out, just from visiting, I liked it a lot more than any of the ones I applied to. So.
Yeah, I had the unique, experience of a trip, or, applying to 3 different schools, well, not applying, but, basically going and choosing 3 different schools, because I went to Sanford my freshman year, and I went to Newark High School, and then I transferred back to Sanford. So, I've done quite a lot of decision processing. I don't really quite remember what my decision was going to Sanford the first time. But when I transferred to Newark, I wanted a larger school. I thought, it would be a more diverse, and not that Sanford's not diverse, because I think in terms of private schools, it's probably got a lot of diversity. But I wanted a place where I could blend in a little more, because I felt like I stood out. And so I went to Newark High School. I had trouble with my academics there, but I remember being so engaged and so involved with my schoolwork at Sanford, and I decided to transfer back, because it was just was such a good environment for me to be successful.
Yeah. So I was really, really fortunate to get accepted to CAB, and I think because I am out of district, and now I think it is a lot harder to get in if you're out of district, which is a shame. But if I hadn't gotten into CAB, I was either going to go to Stanford or Stanford. My bad. Thinking about college. Or the sort of honors program at Newark High. So those were my other 2 options. And because I got into CAB, I didn't have to make that decision, because CAB was sort of my top choice. And I had heard people describe it as a high school version of NCCL, and It's not exactly because it is an arts high school, but it does have that similar feel of a slightly smaller school, and everyone knows each other, and they're very accepting. So.
I think I had a very similar experience to what you were talking about with applying to get into Conrad, which is the Red Clay science school. I applied from out of district, and I was lucky enough to get in. The reason I ended up going to Conrad was because I didn't get into DMA. I wanted to go to the military academy because I thought the uniforms were really cool. But lo and behold, I got involved at the science school and have since learned that I don't like science very much. That it wasn't for me. But it was kind of a process of elimination, I guess.
Yeah, I was curious because I know we chose Newark because I mentioned it's our feeder school. It was free, which was a nice thing. And my boys were desperate to play sports at school. They really wanted to do that, so Newark was convenient, so we chose that for Tyler, and then Clayton wouldn't even look at any of the school. He wanted to go where his brother went, so that decision made itself. Nate?
This is a direct question for Ethan. Okay. So how hard is it to apply for Conrad if you're out of district?
So to be honest, I'm not entirely sure on the process of it anymore. I've heard it has gotten a lot harder since, but to be honest, I haven't looked into it since I applied 7 years ago?
Yeah, no.
Oh, that's weird.
One of the teachers there told us that if you're not in Berkeley School District, then like you won't get it.
I think
Entirely true or not, but
Yeah.
that's what he was telling us.
I think it's always worth a shot, though. You never know what might happen, so I think it's worth it to still try and apply. The worst answer you can get is no.
And when that time comes, Kate will be able to guide you in the right direction. And visit and insist.
Yep.
Sorry. The other thing I really would recommend for helping design your high school is, I don't know if a lot of schools do this anymore, but a shadowing program where you go and you visit the school for a day. That's how I figured out that I wasn't quite as interested in Newark, and then maybe I liked Conrad a little bit more. And it really did help me kind of see what the school environment was like, even though it was for one day.
How does, like, the Catholic schools, how do they treat, like, if you're not Catholic, how do they treat you?
I mean, they don't treat you any different. Pretty much like a good 40% of my school isn't Catholic, so I think they know that there's diversity, and they know that not everyone's going to be Catholic. I mean, there are your standard religion classes that you do have to take, but if you're not Catholic, or if you don't necessarily believe in the Catholic church and their teachings and stuff like that, that's okay. Like, you don't, if you really want to go to a Catholic school, but you're not Catholic, it really doesn't matter.
In high school, I am still active in my church, and I'm Methodist, and we're loud. That's what we're known for, and that's not untrue for me. So there was an instance where we had just gotten a new church, like our school had a new pastor, and he came into our class, and from what I remember, he basically told us that it was his job as a priest to tell people to walk up to someone on the street, ask them what their faith was, and tell them why they were wrong. And I was like, and I'm sitting there furiously, writing, because I was livid. My friend sitting next to me, celebrate. And so, because this is in my theology class, I'm a senior at this point. And so I walked up to him afterwards, and I asked him, this is what you were saying? And my teacher was there, and basically, she was like, yeah, she's more active in her church than pretty much anyone else in her class. So, and I mean, the fact that my teacher knew that made me feel good, and I mean, we had a long argument on my way to my other class, and it was a good discourse. That was just, I mean, everyone's nice, it doesn't matter. Some classes are really interesting. One of my favorite experiences was with world religions. If you want to do to get out of the final or one of the tests, you had to go to 2 different, like non-traditional services. So one of the services I ended up going to was at a mosque, and I ended up going alone. But it was actually one of the best experiences because I had, like, the women, like, just, they were so nice, they, like, swarmed me, and they were like, hi, like, here's this is a nicer, and then, like, afterwards, we sat and talked, and I had a long conversation. They gave me their contact info to give to my teacher, just if they wanted someone to come in and speak, and it was a great experience. And I don't think I would have had that experience if I hadn't wanted not to take a test. So, it was worth it. I liked it.
Okay, so there are some little munchies in the back. And if you would like to ask a question to somebody in a face-to-face way, feel free to do that, right? You're willing. You're not afraid to go. Thank you.
And can I say too, when we're all done, if people wouldn't mind helping putting the chairs back, we don't have a cleanup committee tonight, so if we all pitch in and take 2 or 3 chairs. On the backs, I have marked them with where they go. So 3 is group 3, 4 is group 4. The red ones go right next door in the Spanish room. So we'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.